Did you know that one of the greatest war films ever made almost destroyed its own director? Cross of Iron, released in 1977, tells the brutal story of German soldiers fighting on the Russian front during World War II. It's a film about survival, honor, and the madness of war. But what happened behind the camera was just as wild as what appeared on screen. The director fought with his actors. The money ran out halfway through filming. Explosions went wrong. People got hurt. And yet, somehow, this chaotic mess became a masterpiece. The film didn't glorify war, it showed war as hell. And making it was hell. Let's dive in and discover 20 weird and amazing facts about Cross of Iron. Number 20. The director was slowly dying. Sam Peckinpah was the director of Cross of Iron, and he was famous for making violent, beautiful films. But by 1977, his body was falling apart. He drank too much. He took too many pills. His heart was weak. His hands shook. On set, he sometimes couldn't stand up for more than a few minutes. Cast and crew watched him struggle through each day, wondering if he would make it to the end of the shoot. Some days, he sat in a chair and shouted directions through a megaphone because walking was too hard. Other days, he disappeared entirely, locked in his trailer, battling his own demons. The producers worried constantly. They knew Peckinpah was brilliant, but they also knew he was broken. Yet somehow, through sheer willpower and stubborn pride, he kept going. He refused to quit. He refused to let the film die. Every frame of Cross of Iron carries his pain, his anger, and his genius. What looked like steady direction was actually a dying man's final stand. Number 19. The star almost walked away. James Coburn played Sergeant Steiner, the tough, cynical hero of the film. Coburn was a Hollywood legend, cool and confident. But on the set of Cross of Iron, he nearly quit. The problem was simple. Peckinpah and Coburn clashed constantly. Peckinpah wanted raw emotion and brutal realism. Coburn wanted clarity and professionalism. They argued about scenes, about lines, about tone. One afternoon, after a particularly nasty fight, Coburn packed his bags and headed for the airport. He was done. He didn't need this chaos. But then something strange happened. Peckinpah sent him a handwritten note. It was short, honest, and heartfelt. It said, "I need you. This film needs you. Please stay." Coburn read it in his hotel room. He sat there for a long time, thinking. Finally, he unpacked his bags and went back to set. He never mentioned the note to anyone. He just showed up the next morning and kept working. That quiet moment of reconciliation saved the entire film. What looked like easy teamwork was actually fragile trust, rebuilt one day at a time. Number 18. Real soldiers were hired as extras to make the battle scenes feel authentic. The producers hired hundreds of Yugoslavian soldiers as extras. These weren't actors pretending to be soldiers. They were actual soldiers, trained and disciplined. They knew how to march, how to carry weapons, how to move under fire. This gave the film an incredible sense of realism. When you watch Cross of Iron, you're not seeing Hollywood extras stumbling around. You're seeing real military men who understood war. But this created a strange problem. The real soldiers didn't always follow the director's instructions. They moved the way they were trained to move, not the way Peckinpah wanted them to move. Sometimes, during a scene, they would instinctively take cover in the wrong place or react too quickly. Peckinpah would yell "cut" and storm over. Frustrated, he'd explain what he needed, but the soldiers would look at him like he was crazy. "That's not how it works in real combat," they'd say. Eventually, Peckinpah learned to let them move naturally and just follow them with the camera. What looked like perfect choreography was actually controlled chaos. Number 17. The budget vanished halfway through. Cross of Iron was supposed to be a big, expensive war epic. But halfway through production, the money dried up. The producers had promised millions, but the cash stopped flowing. Nobody knows exactly why. Some say the investors got scared. Others say the producers were lying from the start. Either way, the crew suddenly found themselves working without pay. Explosives ran out. Food became scarce. Equipment started breaking down, and there was no money to fix it. Some crew members quit and went home. Others stayed, working for free, hoping they'd get paid eventually. Peckinpah refused to stop filming. He begged, borrowed, and improvised. He cut scenes, rewrote the script, and found cheaper ways to shoot everything. The final act of the film, which was supposed to have massive battle sequences, had to be scaled down drastically. But instead of ruining the movie, the budget crisis forced Peckinpah to focus on character and emotion rather than spectacle. What looked like artistic choice was actually financial desperation. Number 16. Explosions were too dangerous. War films need explosions, and Cross of Iron had plenty. But these weren't safe, controlled Hollywood explosions. The special effects team was Yugoslavian, and they didn't follow the same safety rules as American crews. They used real military explosives, powerful, unpredictable, and incredibly dangerous. During one scene, an explosion went off too early. Actors were standing too close. The blast knocked several people to the ground. One stuntman got burns on his arms, another got temporary hearing loss. Peckinpah screamed at the effects team, but they just shrugged. "This is how we do it," they said. From that point on, the actors were terrified during every explosion scene. You can see it in their faces. The fear is real. They weren't acting scared. They were actually scared. James Coburn later said that every time he heard action, followed by an explosion, he prayed he'd make it through the take. What looked like brilliant acting was actually genuine terror. Number 15. The script changed every day. Peckinpah hated following scripts. He believed in improvisation and finding the truth of a scene through experimentation. So every morning, he'd rewrite entire sections of the screenplay. Actors would show up expecting to shoot one scene, only to be handed completely new dialogue. Sometimes, Peckinpah would throw out the script entirely and just tell the actors, "Say what feels right." This drove everyone crazy. The producers were furious because they couldn't keep track of the story. The actors were confused because they didn't know what their characters were supposed to do. But Peckinpah didn't care. He trusted his instincts more than the written word. Ironically, this chaos created some of the film's most powerful moments. The raw, spontaneous dialogue feels honest and real because it wasn't carefully planned. It was discovered in the moment. What looked like tight screenwriting was actually wild improvisation. Number 14. The location was a war zone. Cross of Iron was filmed in Yugoslavia, which was a communist country at the time. The landscapes were perfect, rugged, harsh, and desolate, just like the Russian front. But the location came with problems. The production was constantly watched by government officials who didn't trust foreigners. Filming permits were delayed or denied. Equipment was held up at customs. The crew felt like they were being spied on, and they probably were. On top of that, the weather was brutal. It rained constantly, turning the dirt roads into thick mud. Cameras got soaked. Costumes were ruined. Actors slipped and fell during takes. There was no escaping the misery. Peckinpah used all of it. The rain, the mud, the exhaustion, it all became part of the film. The suffering you see on screen is real suffering. What looked like movie magic was actually just endurance. Number 13. The uniforms were authentic. The costume department didn't create fake Nazi uniforms, they used real ones. They scoured Europe looking for original German military gear from World War II. They found helmets, boots, belts, and jackets that had actually been worn by soldiers during the war. Some of the uniforms still had bullet holes in them. Others had dried bloodstains that couldn't be washed out. The actors felt strange wearing these clothes. They knew that real men had died in these uniforms. It gave the film an eerie, haunting quality. James Coburn said he could feel the history in the fabric, like he was carrying ghosts on his shoulders. Peckinpah insisted on this authenticity because he wanted the audience to feel the weight of the past. What looked like excellent costume design was actually history itself. Number 12. The film was banned in Germany. Cross of Iron tells the story from the German perspective, which was controversial. Most war films made Germans the villains, but this film made them human. It showed their fear, their exhaustion, their desire to survive. Some people loved this honesty. Others hated it. In Germany, the film was initially banned. Officials said it was too violent and too sympathetic to soldiers who fought for an evil regime. Peckinpah was furious. He argued that the film wasn't pro-Nazi, it was anti-war. It didn't glorify combat, it showed how war destroys everyone, regardless of which side they're on. Eventually, the ban was lifted, but the controversy lingered. Even today, some people misunderstand the film's intentions. What looked like a bold artistic statement was actually a moral minefield. Number 11. Peckinpah used slow motion like poetry. Sam Peckinpah was famous for his use of slow motion in action scenes. In Cross of Iron, he took this technique to new heights. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. Soldiers fell in graceful arcs. Bullets tore through the air in dreamlike silence. Peckinpah believed that slowing down violence made it more beautiful and more horrifying at the same time. He wanted audiences to really see what war does to the human body. He wanted them to feel every impact, every wound, every death. Critics called it excessive. Some said he was glorifying violence. But Peckinpah insisted he was doing the opposite. He was forcing people to confront the reality they usually looked away from. Every slow-motion shot was carefully planned, almost like a ballet of destruction. What looked like stylish filmmaking was actually a moral statement. Number 10. The Russian tanks were real. The film needed Russian tanks for the battle scenes, and the Yugoslavian military provided them. These weren't replicas or props, they were actual Soviet-era tanks, still in working condition. The problem was, nobody in the film crew knew how to operate them safely. The military sent a few soldiers to drive the tanks, but communication was terrible. Most of the soldiers spoke only Serbo-Croatian, and most of the crew spoke only English. Directions were shouted, misunderstood, and improvised. During one scene, a tank was supposed to roll slowly past the camera. Instead, it veered off course and nearly crushed a camera operator. Everyone scattered, screaming. The tank driver, confused, stopped abruptly. Peckinpah laughed. He loved the danger, the chaos, the unpredictability. He said it made the film feel alive. What looked like controlled action was actually near disaster. Number 9. The child actors were traumatized. There's a heartbreaking scene in Cross of Iron where German soldiers encounter a group of Russian children. The children are terrified, and the soldiers don't know what to do. It's a moment of terrible humanity in the middle of a brutal war. To film this scene, Peckinpah hired local children from a nearby village. They didn't speak English, and they didn't understand what was happening. When the cameras started rolling, the child actors were genuinely scared. The explosions, the shouting, the guns, it was all too real. Some of them cried. Others tried to run away. Peckinpah kept filming. He believed their fear made the scene more powerful. Later, the parents of the children complained. They said their kids had nightmares for weeks. Peckinpah didn't apologize. He said he was making art, not a children's movie. What looked like brilliant direction was actually exploitation of innocence. Number 8. Coburn did his own stunts. James Coburn was in his late 40s during the filming of Cross of Iron, but he insisted on doing most of his own stunts. He ran through explosions, dove into trenches, and crawled under barbed wire. He wanted the action to feel authentic, and he didn't trust stunt doubles to capture the right emotion. But this decision came with a cost. During one scene, Coburn had to jump into a trench while an explosion went off behind him. The timing was off, and the blast hit him harder than expected. He landed badly, twisting his ankle and bruising his ribs. The medic wanted to stop filming, but Coburn refused. He wrapped his ankle, popped some painkillers, and kept going. You can see the pain in his face during the later scenes. It wasn't acting. What looked like heroic performance was actually genuine suffering. Number 7. The film had no happy ending. Most Hollywood war films end with victory, heroism, or redemption. Cross of Iron doesn't. It ends with exhaustion, bitterness, and unanswered questions. Sergeant Steiner survives, but he's broken. The war goes on. Nothing is solved. Peckinpah refused to give audiences the comfort of a clean resolution. He wanted them to leave the theater feeling unsettled, angry, and thoughtful. The studio hated this. They begged him to add a final scene showing hope or triumph. Peckinpah refused. He said the truth of war is that it doesn't end neatly. It just keeps grinding people down until there's nothing left. Test audiences were confused. Critics were divided. But over time, this bleak honesty became one of the film's greatest strengths. What looked like a storytelling mistake was actually uncompromising truth. Number 6. The camera crew rebelled. Peckinpah demanded perfection, and he pushed his camera crew to the limit. He wanted long tracking shots, complicated angles, and constant movement. The cinematographer was exhausted. The camera operators were frustrated. One afternoon, after Peckinpah yelled at them for the 10th time, the entire camera crew walked off set. They said they wouldn't come back until Peckinpah apologized and treated them with respect. Peckinpah was shocked. He wasn't used to people standing up to him. He stormed off to his trailer and slammed the door. For an hour, nobody moved. The actors stood around waiting. Finally, Peckinpah emerged. He walked over to the camera crew, looked them in the eye, and said, "I'm sorry. I need you. Let's finish this." They came back, and filming resumed. But the tension never fully went away. What looked like smooth collaboration was actually a constant battle of wills. Number 5. The sound design was revolutionary. Cross of Iron sounds different from other war films. The gunfire is sharper. The explosions are deeper. The silence between battles is heavier. Peckinpah worked closely with his sound designers to create an audio landscape that felt visceral and real. They recorded actual weapons being fired. They layered multiple explosion sounds to create depth. They used silence as a weapon, letting quiet moments amplify the horror of the violence. In one scene, a soldier is shot, and for a few seconds, there's complete silence. No music, no sound effects, just the faint echo of gunfire. It's terrifying. Audiences weren't used to this level of sonic detail. It made the film feel uncomfortably real. What looked like technical skill was actually artistic obsession. Number 4. Peckinpah fought with the producers every day. The producers wanted a commercial war film that would make money. Peckinpah wanted to make art. These two goals clashed constantly. The producers complained that the film was too violent, too depressing, too slow. Peckinpah ignored them. They threatened to shut down production. Peckinpah threatened to walk away. They argued over every scene, every cut, every decision. The tension was unbearable. At one point, the producers tried to take over the editing process. Peckinpah locked himself in the editing room and refused to let them in. Security was called. Lawyers got involved. Eventually, a compromise was reached, but the final cut of the film was closer to Peckinpah's vision than the producers. It was his last great film. What looked like professional filmmaking was actually creative warfare. Number 3. The film flopped at the box office. Despite all the effort, all the suffering, all the genius, Cross of Iron was a commercial failure. It opened in 1977 and barely made back its budget. Audiences stayed away. They wanted Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, big, hopeful, escapist films. They didn't want a dark, brutal war story with no heroes and no happy ending. Peckinpah was devastated. He believed in this film. He had poured everything into it, his health, his soul, his last bit of creative fire. And the world didn't care. He sank deeper into depression and addiction. He never made another great film. But over time, Cross of Iron found its audience. Critics began to reevaluate it. Film students studied it. Today it's considered one of the best war films ever made. What looked like failure was actually delayed recognition. Number 2. James Mason stole every scene. James Mason played Captain Stransky, the arrogant, cowardly officer obsessed with winning an Iron Cross medal. Mason was a legendary actor, known for his intelligence and subtle power. In Cross of Iron, he's quietly terrifying. He doesn't yell or threaten, he just exists, cold and calculating. Every scene he's in becomes about him, even when he's not the focus. Peckinpah loved what Mason brought to the role. He gave him freedom to improvise, to find the character's darkness. Mason responded by delivering one of the best performances of his career. The final confrontation between Steiner and Stransky is electric. Two incredible actors at the peak of their powers, circling each other like predators. What looked like effortless acting was actually decades of craft. Number 1. Peckinpah knew it was his last masterpiece. Sam Peckinpah was only 52 years old when he made Cross of Iron. But he felt ancient. His body was failing. His reputation was ruined. Hollywood had turned its back on him. He knew deep down that this was his last chance to make something great. Every decision he made was fueled by that knowledge. He didn't hold back. He didn't compromise. He poured every ounce of rage, pain, beauty, and truth into the film. He knew he was dying, and he wanted to leave something behind that mattered. When filming wrapped, he collapsed. He spent weeks in bed, barely able to move. But the film was done. And it was exactly what he wanted it to be: ugly, honest, and unforgettable. He lived for another 7 years, but he never made another film like Cross of Iron. What looked like just another movie was actually a dying man's final gift to the world. Bonus fact, the lost footage that almost changed everything. There's a secret that even hardcore fans of Cross of Iron don't know. Peckinpah shot an entire subplot that never made it into the final film. It involved a German nurse and a dying Russian soldier. The nurse, played by a young Yugoslavian actress, finds the Russian hidden in a bombed-out building. He's bleeding, terrified, and certain she'll kill him. But instead, she bandages his wounds and gives him water. They don't speak the same language, but they share a moment of pure humanity. Peckinpah loved this sequence. He thought it was the emotional heart of the film. But the producers hated it. They said it slowed down the story. They said audiences didn't care about side characters. They demanded it be cut. Peckinpah fought hard to keep it, but he lost. The footage was removed and eventually lost. No one knows where it is today. Some believe it was destroyed. Others think it's sitting in a vault somewhere, waiting to be rediscovered. If that footage ever surfaces, it could change the way we see the entire film. One small scene, lost to time, holding a truth about compassion in the middle of madness. Cross of Iron is more than a war film. It's a portrait of humanity at its breaking point. It's about soldiers who fight not for glory, but for survival. It's about the madness of believing that violence can solve anything. And it's about a director who gave everything he had left to tell a story that mattered. Sam Peckinpah didn't make this film to entertain. He made it to disturb, to challenge, to force us to look at the ugliness we usually ignore. And he succeeded. Every frame is soaked in sweat, blood, and bitter truth. If you enjoyed these stories, subscribe for more. Every movie hides a truth, and we'll keep uncovering them one story at a time.